hello and welcome to week 4, which is about worldview, a really important concept, tool, if you like, in contextualizing. Here I am sitting up in bed, about to have a nap, I think, but I thought I'd do this video first. And yes, worldview and contextualization. I did a whole unit on worldview and contextualizing the gospel with Paul Hebert years ago, and really enjoyed it. It opened up my world, I guess, as we thought about how to contextualize the gospel, particularly for the people we're working among, the Turkish Gypsies of Bulgaria. And I wrote an article out of that, one of the readings you can read this week if you like. There are various case studies, I suppose, that are like people attempting to describe the worldview of the people they have worked among or working among. One of them's Dale Mead, a friend who worked, or a fellow student actually at Trinity, we did fly in, fly out seminar. Well, I was doing fly in, fly out. He was more permanent there for a couple of years before he went back. And he'd been working in Colombia and decided to look at death ritual in Colombia, what happens around death, and that is a major way in which you can get at the worldview of your people, the worldview assumptions, because worldview is deep. Worldview assumptions are largely implicit. People aren't consciously aware of them unless they somehow have been deliberately brought to conscious awareness, some of them. But most of the time, they are a worldview. A set of worldview assumptions are like if you wear glasses, like our glasses. I don't think about wearing glasses. I don't take a lot of time to look at my glasses. What I do is look through them. We look through our worldview. We think with our worldview rather than thinking about it. Usually we're not conscious of much of our worldview assumptions. Nobody is. And just as a way of clarifying, we're talking about the anthropological concept of worldview rather than the philosophical concept of worldview. Sometimes the philosophers and theologians and stuff, when they talk about worldview, they're talking about a set of more consciously held beliefs, I think. Whereas anthropologists, when they talk about worldview, are talking more about the deep level assumptions that are largely unconscious, implicitly held. What else can I say? It is actually true that anthropologists broadly have pretty much thrown out the concept of worldview and have just put it together with values. Worldview and values all to go together, and they don't really talk about worldview anymore. But I think it's still a very helpful concept, and certainly in helping us to think deeply about our people and not just contextualizing our language. Yeah, we have to learn the local language and some superficial stuff of culture, but trying to go deep and explaining things in terms of their thought world. So, what else have we got? We've got Hao Chuang Chua's personal journey. He is also a fellow student. He died of cancer. Yes, some years ago, unfortunately. He was a missionary to Japan with OMF, and I think someone who had grown a real sensitivity to culture as well as to the Lord and to the gospel. And he has a great story about how he and his wife adapted their communication of the gospel for their grandmother in a way that really helped her. And I'm sure there's something else we're looking at. And that is Phil Nicholson, who was for many years the field leader of OMF in Taiwan, now working with Langen Partnership. His chapter on worldview and contextualization. So I hope you enjoy all of these readings that I've attempted to orient us to, and the challenge of trying to think about your own people and one or two elements of the what you think are perhaps the worldview of your people. Have a great week.